Hello there, I'm Sara Jewell, and I'm the author of Alphabet of Faith, 26 words about faith, ethics, and spirituality. The first word in this book for the letter A is acceptance. Acceptance is really important to me. It means a lot to me, and that's why I started my sermon series, which became this book, with the word acceptance. And I'd like to read from that chapter, from the opening essay in my book. A is for acceptance. When I watch and read the news of my community and of this country, Canada, and of the United States and of the rest of the world, I try to remember to ask, where is Jesus in this scenario? And then I wonder what Jesus would think about what's happening. And my third thought is, or should be, what would Jesus want us to do about this? We know Jesus was Jewish, raised and educated in that culture and religious tradition. The purpose of his ministry was to acknowledge the law of Moses, then declare it obsolete. His purpose was to create a new law, a new covenant that would establish a new kingdom on earth that would be very different from any of the kingdoms, particularly Herod's, that already existed in the world as Jesus knew it. This new kingdom would be based on a mere two laws: love God and love one another. Deceptively simple, but incredibly challenging. These two laws both encapsulated and nullified the laws of Moses. Move over, uncle. There's a new kid in town with a new way of doing things. Since Jesus was very much a do as I do kind of guy, he showed us how to walk this new way by rejecting the establishment, skewering the status quo, embracing the outcasts, and lifting up the oppressed. He was a light shining into dim corners and drawing out those hiding there because of fear of persecution, because of relentless rejection, because of broken hearts that wouldn't heal. Looking out at our beautiful, broken, and brutal world today, it's clear we still need to hear about Jesus. It's clear we still need to understand how he wanted to transform the world. He was in the world, John wrote in the opening chapter of his gospel, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God. His own people did not accept him. We don't hear this word a lot in church, but acceptance is a huge part of our Christian faith. It's in everything Jesus asks of us: to love our neighbors, to serve others, to forgive, to offer a chair at the table to everyone, but mainly to those who don't get invited, who are ignored, or who are gossiped about, to welcome everyone, not only those who are just like us, whatever that means. One of my early visions of Jesus in the world today happened when I was a teenager. Didn't happen at church, happened in the news. In 1987, Princess Diana, Princess of Wales, opened the United Kingdom's first unit dedicated to treating people with HIV and AIDS. At the opening, she shook the bare hand of a man with AIDS without wearing a glove. With that simple act of mercy, Diana challenged the world's irrational fears about HIV/AIDS. She showed us what acceptance looks like and how it transforms not just those of us witnessing it, but the person receiving it. Acceptance is a powerful way to fulfill Jesus' commandment to love one another. In 2019, writer and human rights advocate Amanda Jette Knox of Ottawa published her first book, a memoir entitled Love Lives Here, a story of thriving in a transgender family. It's a story about family and fitting in, about courage, authenticity, and acceptance. It's a story about love. I read the book in one day. I couldn't stop reading it, but I also had to put it down and walk the dog in order to process what I was reading, to absorb the story. Transgender means someone does not identify as the gender they were assigned at birth. According to Stats Canada, in 2018, about 75,000 Canadians aged 15 and older said they were transgender. That includes those who are non-binary. those whose current gender was not reported exclusively as male or female. A lot of people struggle to understand, let alone accept, what it means to be transgender, to have a gender identity or gender expression that differs from the sex they were assigned at birth. A lot of people want to deny the trans experience, to deny trans people their human rights, including medical procedures that will allow them to be who they are. A lot of people claim that someone who is transgender is just confused, misled, looking for attention, sick, a freak, even a danger to the public. You know the rant. A transgender woman who wants to use the women's bathroom is a pervert or a pedophile. This fear translates into anger and violence. According to the Human Rights Campaign, the largest LGBTQT advocacy group in the U.S., in 2020, 44 transgender or gender non-conforming people were killed worldwide. And those are just the deaths linked to identity that were reported. How sure are you of your gender and of how you want to express that gender? I know how I feel about being a woman. I am sure of my gender and how I express it. A person who is trans feels the same way, is just as sure about who they are, only they have to deal with a body that doesn't match how they feel. In the book, Knox shares the email she and her partner received from their 11-year-old child one evening. Please don't be angry. Please try to understand. I'm a girl trapped in a boy's body. More than anything, I want to be a girl. Please help me. Where is Jesus in this story? Jesus is in that child's room, sitting cross-legged on their bed, encouraging them as they type, braving them up by telling them no matter how anyone else reacts, they are fine just the way they are. They are loved and worthy of love, not as they were born, but as the person they are, whoever that person is. There's one thing I believe, it's that Jesus, who commanded us to love one another, would not turn his back on a person who is trying bravely and resolutely to be their true selves, to be authentic. If there is one thing we can do for each other and for the world, it would be to embrace acceptance. And not our kind of reserved, conditional, judgy acceptance, but full-blown radical acceptance. The kind Jesus calls us to. One way is to open our minds to the experiences of others, whether we are reading their story or listening to it. I didn't think I needed to read Knox's book. After all, I'm an open and accepting person, right? And I thought of a young friend of mine from my small rural community who is walking this road of authentic self. So I read it because of him. Turns out I needed to read this book, not because I wasn't open and accepting, but because I didn't really get my friend's experience. Now I truly understand what it means to be trans, to be told you are one gender yet feel like another. Now I truly understand why names and pronouns matter so much. Get them right. More significantly, now I truly understand what acceptance means to a trans person. And the essay goes on to talk a little bit more about Knox's experience. And I want to skip ahead to, reading this book made my heart and mind expand. And I have to tell you, it felt really good to understand. Understanding is the opposite of fear. We do better when we know better. And it's so much easier on our minds and bodies to accept rather than fear, to love rather than hate. In her 2018 memoir, Becoming, Michelle Obama wrote, "I've learned it's harder to hate close up." Michelle made that observation during the 2008 campaign for her husband, Barack Obama's nomination as the Democratic presidential candidate. She wrote about the way her comments were taken out of context, her shock at how mean people could be, and about the racism that was a subtle, constant drumbeat. A page later, she talked about her speech at the Democratic National Convention in the summer of 2008. She said it was findable on YouTube, so I put her book down and watched her speech again for the first time since seeing her deliver it live. About 6 minutes in, she listed the values both she and Barack were raised with. The third one is this: You treat people with respect and dignity, even if you don't know them, and even if you don't agree with them. Respect and dignity. That's how we all want to be treated. And we must give in order to receive. And that's the example Jesus gave us after all. Respect, dignity, acceptance. Poet Yung Pueblo wrote, observe, accept, release, transform. As followers of Jesus, as those commanded to love one another, we know transformation happens when we observe the lives around us, accept everyone as they are, and release whatever ignorance and fear and judgment we've been holding on to. We feel our hearts and minds transformed. Acceptance is empowerment for every person, no matter who they are. And it is through acceptance, that radical, arms wide open kind of acceptance Jesus asks of us, that we are empowered to transform the world. That is the essay, my first essay, A for Acceptance, in my book, Alphabet of Faith, 26 words about faith, ethics, and spirituality. I'm Sara Jewell. Thanks for checking this out. Thanks for listening. Take care.